Well, there was one such rally in Richmond, the capital of the Commonwealth of Virginia. It was a pro-firearms rights, pro-Second Amendment rally, and I guess it was simply too big to be ignored. I've seen reports saying 22,000 or more lawful firearms owners meeting in resistance to their Democrat governor's plans to, well, crack down on lawful firearms ownership. Let me show you how Justin Trudeau's CBC state broadcaster reported on this. Look at this tweet. Gun rights activists, along with members of militia groups and white supremacists, began to descend on Virginia's capital city this morning to protest Democrats' plans to pass gun control legislation. White supremacists. Well, here's an interview with one such white supremacist. Take a look.
The real reason I'm out here is I do not support in any way, shape, or form Governor Northam's and the Democrats' gun control. What I also don't support is the fact that every news piece you've seen on this weekend, they've always brought up the issue of race, as though it's nothing but white rednecks and hillbillies out here who care for the Second Amendment, when actually Black Americans, Asian Americans, Hispanic Americans, Americans in general care about the Second Amendment. I work at a gun store part-time, and I can't tell you the number of customers I see of all races, all colors, all creeds, who care about the Second Amendment and who just want to peaceably live their lives, enjoy their rights, and the Second Amendment.
Well, it wasn't just the CBC that slandered 22,000 people as white supremacists. NBC in America did so. This is a deleted tweet from their reporter Ben Collins. Look at the first sentence. Reporters covering tomorrow's white nationalist rally in Virginia. I'm absolutely begging you. And it goes on. Now, of course, it was not a white nationalist rally. And he had the shame to delete his slanderous tweet, whereas the one I showed you from the CBC remains published to this day. Well, joining us now via Skype from Las Vegas is a new correspondent, AWR Hawkins, PhD. He's with Breitbart.com, where our friend Joel Pollack and Alan Bokhari come from. He's their Second Amendment correspondent, and he joins us now. AWR, thanks very much for taking the time to join us here today. You're sort of the firearms or Second Amendment expert at Breitbart. Was this a white supremacist rally, and on what basis could the CBC or NBC say so?
No, it wasn't white supremacist. And the only basis, well, they don't have a basis. What they have is the leftist tendency to try to frame reality for us. You know that leftist policies won't work in reality. In the metaphysical, leftist policies won't work. So they have to get us to buy into an ulterior reality. And the same situation here. This is a nightmare for leftists that 10, 20, 25, however many thousand people show up peaceably to demonstrate for the Second Amendment. That's a nightmare. So what you have to do if you're a leftist, you get out in front of that, you tell people, hey, you're not going to see what you think you're going to see. When you see it, you're not seeing what you think you're seeing. What you're really seeing are a bunch of white supremacists. And blah, blah, blah. That's just how they work.
It's a god.
If they're trying to justify raising taxes, they work the same way. If they're trying to justify a high cap magazine ban, some other type of liberal policy. And that's what they did with this rally, and it backfired on.
Yeah. Well, I saw clips of many Black Americans. I saw Asian Americans. I mean, people were sort of tooting their horn of which group they're with to sort of disprove this slander. I saw LGBTQ people with those signs. The CBC, I don't know why they still have that slander up. I guess they don't really care. I mean, they're a Canadian broadcaster. What do they care about slandering Virginians? But there was one thing that I think would surprise a Canadian, because nowhere in our country do we have open carry of lawful firearms. And I think it's startling to Canadians to see 22,000 people, I'm going to say at least a quarter of them packing heat. To the liberal mindset, that ought to be like, they would, oh, someone's going to shoot, and then everyone's going to shoot the shooter, and it's going to be a massive crossfire, and you're going to have a massacre. Not one shot was shot.
Right.
The liberal mind would say, oh my God, that's the most dangerous place on earth. Conservatives probably know that's likely the safest place in America for that day.
Right. You're exactly right. You know, humans, regardless of our political philosophy or political bent, we are wired by nature that self-preservation is our chief goal. It just is. It's a subconscious drive. It's an involuntary drive. And you don't do stupid things when you know the people around you are armed. And likewise, people around you don't do stupid things when they know you're armed. Thus comes the old mantra from the Wild West, right? An armed society is a polite society. I live in a state in the United States where I carry a gun openly, usually 3 days a week, maybe 4 or 5 days a week. I carry either a classic 1911, which is a 45 caliber handgun in plain sight on my hip, or I carry a 9mm handgun in plain sight on my hip. And I'm by no means alone. It's not uncommon to be in line at the fast food restaurant, and the guy in front of you and the guy behind you are both carrying openly. There's nothing alarming about it because you know these are good guys with guns, and they're carrying for the benefit of the protection of their own lives, their family's life, and God forbid, the life of somebody in that store should some lunatic come in there. Yeah. And that's just how the real world works here in America, and I treasure that. It's an aspect of American life that I treasure.
That's an excerpt from the Ezra Levant Show, which is a show I do every day. I do a monologue, interview an interesting guest, and then I read my hate mail. But you've got to subscribe to it, which you can do at premium.rebelnews.com.